The Yemeni fury has been unleashed. They announced revenge against Donald Trump following the recent aggressions by the United States Armed Forces against the Houthis in Yemen. The rebel group's response has been as forceful as it was unexpected. In a statement, the Houthis have described the attacks as a flagrant aggression and have promised a series of retaliations that will shake the foundations of U.S. politics. Despite Trump's efforts to apply relentless military pressure, the Houthis have made it clear that they will not stand idly by. With growing support for the Palestinian cause and unwavering backing for their people, they have intensified their warnings that this conflict will be much more than just a territorial confrontation. The recent airstrikes could mark the beginning of a historic revenge that could rewrite the rules of power in the Middle East. Trump should prepare. The Houthis announce revenge. Yes, the Houthis in Yemen have publicly declared that the U.S. aggression will not go unpunished. This statement of intent is a direct message to both the Trump administration and the interests of the countries backing its actions in the region, which could face the consequences of an unprecedented military escalation. The recent U.S. intervention in Yemen, orchestrated under the orders of President Donald Trump, has triggered a strong response from the Houthis, who are ready to confront a force they consider an existential threat to their sovereignty. Trump, known for his belligerent style in international politics, particularly in the Middle East, has not hesitated to intensify military operations against the Houthis. However, recent developments suggest that the situation may be more complex than it appears. Despite Trump's order to launch a decisive and powerful operation against the Houthis, the president finds himself caught between the pressures of his advisors and his own reservations about getting involved in a large-scale military conflict in the region. While some of his advisors call for an even more aggressive approach to dismantle the Houthis' power in the north, Trump does not seem willing to take additional risks that could drag the United States into a new war in an already unstable terrain. This has led to a halt in the military response, a delay that could jeopardize the most aggressive plans of his allies, including Israel. For their part, the Houthis have been clear in their message. The U.S. operation against their targets, which they describe as a flagrant aggression, has been received as a direct attack not only on their group, but also on Yemen's sovereignty. In their statement, the Houthis assured that they will not remain passive in the face of what they consider a war crime, as the attack against civilians and civilian targets is presented as an act of terrorism, an accusation that underscores the nature of their response to the incursion by U.S. forces. Moreover, this act aims to strengthen their stance. They affirmed that they will continue to support Gaza despite U.S. efforts to divert attention toward the supposed threat the Houthis pose to international navigation in the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. This strait, vital for global navigation, and especially for oil trade, has been a key point in Trump's accusations, as he has attempted to link the Houthi attacks to a threat to international stability. However, the Houthis have been quick to reject these accusations, calling Trump's statements false and an attempt to manipulate international public opinion. Instead of a generalized threat, the Houthis have clarified that the naval blockade imposed by Yemen is limited to Israeli navigation until humanitarian aid is delivered to the people of Gaza. This stance highlights their regional interests and their support for the Palestinian cause. In this context, the Houthis not only oppose U.S. military incursions, but have also presented an alternative narrative that portrays them not as a terrorist group, but as a force of resistance against international aggression. It is important to note that the escalation of tensions not only involves the Houthis and the United States, but also their allies. Trump, in his eagerness to pressure the Houthis, has aligned with the interests of countries like Israel, which has urged a more forceful response against the Tehran regime and its support for the Houthis. Despite external pressures, Trump has shown reluctance to become more deeply involved in a conflict that could extend beyond Yemen, with unpredictable consequences for U.S. policy in the region. In this landscape of uncertainty, Trump's decisions appear to be taken under internal tension, with his national security advisors pushing for a more aggressive response, while the president remains cautious, aware of the implications that a greater conflict could have for his political image and his promise to avoid more wars abroad. Trump's resistance to taking more drastic measures could reflect a growing awareness that the costs of deeper intervention in Yemen would be too high, both for the United States and for the region's stability. However, the pressure is high, and military movements are already underway, with airstrikes against Houthi arsenals expected to continue for several weeks. On the other hand, the Houthis, far from being intimidated, have reinforced their stance of resistance against what they consider an unjustified aggression. Their determination to respond to U.S. attacks has become a fundamental principle of their strategy. With the mobilization of their armed forces, they have indicated that they are fully prepared for one escalation after another, suggesting that they are willing to continue the confrontation in the long term. This not only tests Trump's ability to handle the situation, but also opens the possibility of a new phase of conflict with implications for all involved actors. By taking such a firm stance, the Houthis have also sought to strengthen their image as defenders of their country and their allies in Gaza, something that reinforces the sentiment of resistance that characterizes them. In this sense, their rhetoric presents itself as an alternative to U.S. imperialism and its allies, whom they accuse of perpetuating the suffering of the region's people. While the United States maintains a defensive stance, trying to justify its attacks as a response to an unrelenting campaign of piracy and terrorism, the Houthis have managed to construct a narrative that resonates with those who see their struggle as a legitimate form of resistance against external oppression. The challenge for Trump in this context is clear. Facing internal pressure from his advisors and allies, along with public opinion that could become more critical of an unnecessary escalation, the president finds himself at a crossroads. His promise to avoid further involvement in Middle Eastern conflicts could clash with the need to take more aggressive measures to ensure U.S. hegemony in the region, especially at a time when rivalry with Iran and its allies appears to be intensifying. This is where history takes a more complex turn. The Houthis, far from being a mere threat, have proven to be a key player in the geopolitical chessboard of the Middle East. A group that, despite accusations of terrorism and piracy, has managed to consolidate a regional support base and successfully challenge external interventions. As they prepare for what appears to be imminent revenge, the Houthis send a clear message. They will not surrender to external pressure, and their fight for Yemen's autonomy and justice in Gaza is far from over. The escalating tensions between the Houthis and the United States have set the stage for a geopolitical crisis with far-reaching consequences. While Trump's administration seeks to exert military pressure, the Houthis remain resolute in their defiance, framing their struggle as a legitimate resistance against foreign aggression. The strategic significance of Yemen, coupled with the ongoing conflict in Gaza, has further entangled regional and global powers, making any resolution increasingly complex. The Houthis' narrative of sovereignty and resistance has gained traction, challenging the dominant discourse presented by the United States and its allies. With the threat of prolonged military action looming, the conflict risks spiraling